Call the meeting to order for Monday, February 4th. Welcome. And have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Debbie. Second. Oh, that was Kevin. Thank you. Any opposition? All in favor of that? All okay? Guess we're all okay. Yes. So we have a busy meeting. We have till 11:15 because we go into another 15-minute meeting after that, an exec session after that. So busy morning. Quick updates. Website revisions. I know that there's been movement on that very recently. And is Patrick going to come around to the camera and just give us a very quick update? Because I know there is movement.
Correct, there is movement. This Friday, we're expected to get the website delivered to us so that we can begin reviewing, going through it and making sure that it can sustain the town. We have to make sure that there are no issues outstanding, plugins that needed to be added. There are no things that just were left out.
So this is a draft website.
Correct. It is the draft website, and we'll have essentially about a week or so to kind of go through it and break it.
Yeah, we want to. That's a design, right, to try to break it.
Right. Exactly.
So we want to make sure it's covering the functions that we have currently, that we want to continue, some new ones, a different look.
Well, we're not at the point where we want to go with a different look. This is we're in that final stage. Okay. This is before we deploy it.
Before we deploy it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then, broken websites really quick. I do want to thank you. This weekend there was an issue with the current website, and Saturday, 10 o'clock at night, yesterday in the middle of the game, you were on it, you were emailing, you were working with the guy behind the current website, right, to get that fixed. So
yeah, they really stepped up and said, we'll take a look at the existing site.
And that was totally unrelated?
Unrelated.
Yeah, correct. Because they're not doing anything with the current website.
Right, the new site is hosted on their own server, so they're making sure that that's up and running, and then at that final hour, they'll just switch it over to the domain, so.
Right, just point the URL to a different place.
Right.
Thank you for responding on a Sunday night.
No problem, no problem.
And it's nice that vendor responded to help us with whatever our internal problem was.
Right.
Or whatever our problem was.
Right.
Good. Anything else on that from the board? We're looking forward to it. Once, so it comes out, and then it'll be shared with the board or shared internally, or what's the logistics plan?
It'll come to us first, and we'll take a look at that and pass that over to the board so that they can review it as well.
If you think it's ready for us to look at.
Right.
Now, Kevin and David were going to try to break it, right?
Well, both, we're all going to try to break it, but I believe there was supposed to be 2 revisions, if you will. So we haven't really, we've seen some cosmetic things, but we really haven't seen the website, if you will. So is that going to come to us for the first look, or did you guys already do that first look?
We did the first look. That second revision was what I tried to schedule with the 2 of you, and
I think we saw
couldn't,
it, and it wasn't at that point yet. I mean, it was almost there. I wouldn't consider that the first round, if you will.
Right.
The first time you saw that website was the first time. The second,
there wasn't much there.
Right. That was the first time.
Screenshot.
Correct. That was the first time, and that was essentially laying out the game.
Yeah.
Why don't we do this?
We'll get there.
Because I know you got a busy agenda today. So on Friday when we get it, if it's okay, we can give it to the whole board for you all to look at it, and then you can just filter your comments through Kevin and David. That way we know that that's kind of our one voice direction.
I'm fine with it.
Any updates on it?
Do we really need to go into the whole board, or can we have it go to a couple people first? I mean,
if you want to click it. If not, don't.
I don't have any interest. To say I don't have any interest wrong. I just know that when you have 7 authors, it doesn't work well.
Yeah. If you want to click it. If not,
yeah. Sending it to all of us and engage if you want.
And just to keep it focused, it'll be David and Kevin getting back to Patrick as the liaison.
Yeah, that'd be
right.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Good. And then hopefully we'll have a launch, once it gets finalized, we'll have a launch to the community.
Yeah, we can schedule that launch date for everyone.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Quick update, Parks and Rec Master Plan. We've had some busy weeks and months.
We did. We had our kickoff meeting with the public in January, and then last week we had focus group meetings with our key stakeholders in the community. And then Brian took part in them also, so I don't know if you want to comment on your observations.
I actually thought the first meeting, which was the public meeting, I thought was so-so, to be very honest. The focus, I mean, it was, we had the rigged results where, you know, come out for this and come out for that, and you're kind of getting people familiar. The focus groups I found to be very good, actually. And the focus groups were like the committees, we had the foundation, we had the parks, we had youth athletics. I've used the analogy with a few people on the board. When you're 61 years old, got gray hair, and your grandchildren live in Baltimore, you really don't think about youth programs as much as you could. It was fascinating as a board member actually to see how everything is impact kids and stuff like that, dance clubs and stuff like that. So I found it very interesting, very good. And what it'll do is, okay, so we're going to have this one subset of data from the first one. We're going to have a subset of data from the focus groups. The surveys will go out. The statistically valid survey is to go out February 18th. About a week after that, there's going to be a survey going out via email to all residents in Celebration. So we'll have two subsets of data there. As regards survey questions, going with our one voice approach again, I got on late Friday the survey questions. I'd reviewed them before. I asked a couple of questions. I'll come back to the board probably tomorrow with a list of questions. Now, what I'd like you to not do with the list of questions, the survey results, is flip them upside down. You just can't do that. Because what they've done here, and Steve can correct all my errors here, but they actually build it to be consistent with surveys that are ran nationally, that are ran regionally, that are ran statewide. So they're trying to give us comparative information as well as that too. You know, on the other hand, if it said, here's a list of 9 things, and what do you think about these 9 things, and you think there should be a 10th and 11th, we could easily add a 10th and 11th thing on those lists and stuff like that. Give me all your comments. I'll be the focus point person for the board on this particular one. You know, realistically, we get it out in February. People are going to have about a month to get back. We'll be having a report back in April. It'd be one of the items for the new board, and then to refresh everyone in the audience. Once we get the feedback from the parks and facilities plan stuff in late April, then the new board starts talking about, all right, now how does this prioritize activities going forward? And the results that we do get, once the board has reviewed them, will be shared with the public, so you'll know the results too of the whole plan. But this is really setting the framework for how we think about parks and facilities priorities going forward for the next 5-10 years. And we got questions on that.
Yeah, okay, so the way we do public comment, you come up here, but it's always tied to something on the agenda.
Which they're talking about right now.
Yeah, right. So if we have something in Parks and Rec, that's great.
And so exactly too.
So you stand directly in front of the microphone. Okay. Eileen Barr, 1138 Mosaic. I did speak to some people after the meeting with the dog park, Park and Rec, and special events focus group. And I think the feeling was that they just didn't get enough time to really talk about issues. And I don't really have anything else to say, but I think the 6 people that I know came to that were really as good a group as you could possibly get, knowing both the past and the future about where we're going. And to me, that's just a tremendous race that I know. I believe somebody said to you, "Is this it, Brian?" You said, "Yeah, this is it." So I think some people that I spoke to were somewhat disappointed, and I obviously was a little disappointed also.
Thank you. Front and center, or side.
I spoke to several of you after the meeting that night. One of the questions I have as you look at different strands of data that you're going to be collecting is what happened to the data that was garnered by a very active and different cross-section of celebration on that Saturday that occurred back in, I forget when it was, where the process was very interactive, very celebration focused, and netted some really powerful data from this community. I would hope, I would expect that that data becomes an equal strand of information and helps to focus the board based on what that group came up with.
Okay. So that data has been provided to them, and I think it's probably fair to say when I talked about the different buckets that we should just take that Saturday and make it a bucket.
Great.
I think that's a great
To
idea.
touch
I
on
have no
Judith's
problem
comment,
with that.
I know that you mentioned,
You don't need-
that you asked about this actually at that evening, because you said it to me as well. And David and I spoke,
Right.
and David assured that Steve
Yeah.
did get that information
Yeah.
to Lowe's Design.
Yeah, I was very disappointed, as you know, about the meeting. And what disappointed me most was it was kind of one of these, in terms of information, there was no continuity with
Right.
who knew about that Saturday meeting. There was no continuity about the understanding from the group that you have hired about what was garnered at that meeting and the power of that, as well as the processes that were used and the sharing. Let me put it that way. You know, it was one of these, oh, I never saw that. Oh, I sent it to them. Oh, the board never wanted it. It was just very frustrating for a citizen who's trying to be involved in all aspects of this, because it's going to affect my life till its end. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We'll go Becky and then Cindy, but let me respond to a couple things there. So at the Celebration 25, several board members were there, so the board was aware. The data was shared with them. Steve and Wynn, yeah, have they read it all? Have they thought through it all carefully? No. We gave them a budget. So at the end of the day, if we wanted a $100,000 project, they would just analyze the daylights out of this. We chose to give them a $30,000 budget. So part of what we're reflecting here is the reality of what we said, okay, this is what we want. We have told them that we wanted the prior study to matter, and I think after listening to this, when I described the 5 or 6 buckets, I think we ought to have a 6th bucket, which we can all agree on the formatting, which is the priorities that came out of that, so that the new board can sit there and say, here's Celebration 25, here is the group thing, here's the focus groups, here's the statistical survey, here's the company-wide survey. I agree with that. So I'm just trying to provide some color.
Yeah, to add to that, if the expectation was going into that public meeting, that was going to drive the data that the board was going to receive to prioritize the future projects, that's the wrong expectation. That meeting was one prong and a multi-prong approach. So we're getting ready to start phase 3, which is the community-wide surveys, where there will be a statistically valid pool, and then there'll also be that more open pool of everybody in the community will have an opportunity to give that feedback. Now that one's a little bit more easily manipulated, where multiple people can respond over and over again on that one, but the statistically valid will go into that.
Kevin?
I believe I understand what Judith is coming from there, because I was there, you know, at both events. And the concern was that Judith did ask management if this report was submitted. Management said yes, Lowe's said no.
Well,
So that's, and I'm not going to get into a he said, she said.
No,
but
but
I think that's what the concern
there was
is
some
when it comes
Yeah,
to
I think
this.
there was, because the original conversation that we had, I was under the understanding that we were talking about something completely different. And
So
no,
the-
I hadn't shared it with them.
I thought
There was just confusion.
the larger picture is they did not do a good job framing the multi-dimensions of the project with a large-scale community meeting.
For
Okay.
To me, that's-
$74,000.
Okay,
So-
so fine. Becky,
We have two other
just your
comments.
question to me, so let me just answer it. Roughly, okay, so first of all, the statistical survey is going to come out on about the 18th of February. So let's be perfectly clear here. You're all not going to get a statistically valid survey. Only certain people are going to get a statistically valid survey, and they're going to get a code and everything, so it's very tightly controlled, so it cannot be manipulated. Surprise, surprise. The email survey will be a flash that comes out from town hall that people can respond to, and you know, there's 4,321 homes, and we'll probably get 11,000 responses, because some people will vote 6 times and some people will vote 3, and that's life. It's the board's the new board's responsibility to figure out how to discern, you know, how many responses we get. So that's kind of how that'll work. And then there will, roughly,
It's the 11th for the statistically
is
valid.
it now the 11th?
Yeah, the 11th is when they're shooting to get that out, and then the 18th for the next one. the,
Okay.
Wide open one, yeah.
But it is, my understanding, and I've heard this from them, this is the same survey, 2 different distribution lists.
Correct.
It's the same survey. So those who are on the statistical sample will get the same survey if they're part of the,
But I think they're also going to get the email one too. because
Yeah,
I
they
think
get the, that's my point.
they'll just
That's
have
my
it.
point. They have to do it twice.
If you get the statistically valid postcard, do that.
Yeah,
Fill
we
that
need
one
you to
out
respond.
and
If
do
you
it
get
that
the
way.
postcard and we will advertise
Yeah.
the daylights out of you, please respond to the survey.
Absolutely.
Okay, Cindy? Sorry.
Just something for you guys to maybe get creative with. When we did this last survey on this, which was probably 10, 12 years ago, it came to us as a Parks and Recreational survey. Had I not been working here at the time, that would have immediately went into the garbage, because I don't do parks, I don't do any recreation here. I would just like to suggest that when you do send this out, there's something in it that lets people know that it's more than just stuff for kids. It's more than just the buildings here. It has to do with the whole lifestyle, and maybe you call it lifestyle survey or something, just to get, like Brian said, he's got kids, he doesn't think about, but they're not here, grandkids, they're not here. I think you need to, like I said, call it something that's going to encourage people who wouldn't normally open up a Parks and Recreation or Facilities survey to make more people open
And we have
it up.
stressed that with them.
Yeah.
That,
So,
that while the recreation people know that recreation includes all of this, the general populace, most of us here, do not get that, which
Yeah.
is the same point.
Yeah, something,
So
just general like
communicate clearly
lifestyle.
that it's inclusive beyond the
Exactly.
green space
I
and
think
the
we'll get a
asphalt
much better
space.
result.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
Good suggestion, I like that.
Yep. Anything else on that? Okay, Island Village. Quick update, we had a community meeting last Thursday. We had a community meeting last Thursday, and we're going to have we'll have a follow-up with the ad hoc group probably the end of February.
Right. I have just monitored the back porch. Well, shock of all shocks. It actually has got good reviews. I mean, there are pros and cons on Mattamy, that's life. Disney picked them. There are pictures of all kinds of slides out there and different things like that. There's a lot of good information. Most of the feedback I saw was, thank you, it was a great meeting, I got a better idea, I like this, I don't like that, but that's, Island Village is gonna be like that. But it was a good session. We are trying, Mattamy's reviewing right now, making the whole slide, the whole video released by them and what that requires and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
we've asked them, I've already gotten requests from residents, like something about contacting whomever the people are, and I just said, I asked for permission to share their email, haven't gotten that permission yet, but they're trying to figure out how they're going to communicate. That was their last or next to the last slide.
Mattamy's problem right now is that it was positively received, and they're starting to get a flood of when you stand in front of a group of celebration people, you quickly learn if you say, this is my email address, please email me, and we had an email back from Bennett this week going, holy cow, these people did it. So they're now trying to figure out what did they do to themselves, so that's a good problem.
And so in credit to them, this is generally not part of their normal way of doing business, for a builder to do it like this, but it's the way Celebration does business. Comment, please.
Yes, good morning.
Can I stop you
Yeah.
for one minute?
Yes.
I had a resident come up to me over the weekend and say, Island Village will be a CROA property, and I want to just correct that misconception. It is a CROA property. There will be some commercial space there as they build out,
Yeah.
but this is a CROA-related property, and so for those of you that are thinking this is going to be
Right.
some CROA, perhaps even an extension of Epcot, it's not. It's a low to middle production home builder with a fairly large tract of property and about double the size of Artisan Park by the time it's all built out. So I think it's important to keep in mind exactly what we're talking about.
And also, and then we will go to you, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
It's important that, because like Downtown Celebration, one of the things on the back porch was it's 180,000 square feet of commercial. And the first phase there in Island Village is 15,000, which puts scope and relativity. The comment was made that, that someone thought there was 30. The answer is there is 30,000. Phases 2, 3, and 4 will have another 15,000 in total. So when you look at what's really happening there from the perspective of Island Village, it's predominantly CROA because there's not a lot of commercial, and it's probably going to be a few restaurants. It's going to be a Starbucks or maybe a Dunkin' Donuts, and then, a couple of things like that.
Please, sorry.
Good morning. I'm Dave Rohide. I'm one of the owners of the townhouses at South Village, and I just want to say that I hope Island Village has a better roofing company than we had representing our South Village. Also, for the record, I'd like to say that we need more women on this board. It'd be really nice to have a little more representation of the 51% of the population in the city. Going back to Island Village, do we know who is going to be working on the roofs? No, okay. I just want to say from a personal experience, and I'm just trying to close things out from 2018 and 2017 being that's a new year, 2019, and I was going off my cross-off list to 2018, and I realized that one thing from 2017 has not been resolved yet, and we're going on to 2 years now, and that's the roof situation at the South Village townhouses. We were notified by proxy that anything was wrong and the roofs were being rebuilt, I guess.
Mr. President, this is not.
Yeah, this is not part of Island Village.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a time for this comment, but this is not this
Yeah,
time.
thank you.
When will it be time for this?
That would be at a public setting in the board meeting at the end of the month.
Okay,
We have public comment. This workshop is focused on these 15 topics.
Before we dismiss this for just a moment,
Yes.
I do want to explain two different things here. One, Island Village and CROA, we have no say what they do.
Okay.
And trust me, I don't like to wear this hat often, but as an owner in Town Center, I understand your frustration. I do.
Yes. It's been going on for almost 2 years now, and we're not getting any answers.
And the board's going to kill me for responding to you right now. But when it comes
Please.
to Island Village, CROA has nothing to do. When it comes to your townhouses, I will tell you that this board is ripping our hair out, reviewing everything we possibly can, because this is something that was handed to this board. It's the way the system is set up. This board turns over every year, so it is difficult. But we are, I will promise you that, sitting and having meetings with management and the attorney for the area and reviewing everything we possibly can.
And we just
please come
received-
back at the next meeting.
We just
and
received a
maybe we
late
can say
Friday,
something
very
further.
late Friday, 80,000 word report, which we've been reading over the weekend, so we definitely will address this.
Mr. President,
Yeah. Okay, we're on top of this. Thank you for your comment.
Okay, we did have a sign-up sheet at the beginning, and we signed in. Is that
Yeah, that's
enough?
to comment on these
To
topics.
comment on these topics?
Comment on
only?
these topics.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to say before I leave that we have obtained legal representation on
Great,
this.
thank you, thank you. Anything else on Island Village?
I just have one thing.
Yeah.
I'd like the board to look at, when we were at the Mattamy speech, the school replacement, which is going to be right at the entrance
Right at
of
the
the
entrance.
Celebration Boulevard. I don't know what the design is of that, but I'd like to see us, if we can, have some influence maybe on the architecture, maybe instead of a square block building. I don't know what the school board's plans are, Steve, maybe you know, but even our K-8 has a little bit of architecture to it, where it just doesn't look like a prison. If you do some barbed wire around, some of these schools look like a prison. But I'd like to see the entrance to Island Village have some character rather than just big square beige building. If we could, maybe the group that's meeting with Matt.
Yeah, we'll share that with the ad hoc group, and we were thankful that the school board, the newly elected Terry Castillo was at the meeting, so sharing that with them, that's really a school board decision.
It is the board and TCC.
But again, like Kevin's point, they don't have to listen to us. We have inserted ourselves into their process. We'll do the same with the school. I think your point is a good one. And then that's up to them.
It's just an important entrance for that village. It's the only entrance.
It is the entrance.
Could be
It's the first thing one sees. Shall we move on? Agreement with Osceola County, an update, quick update?
The latest update is March 18th is the date for the board agenda item for the resolution and also for the ordinance and for the approval of the agreement.
Should anybody be there for that?
I have offered for myself or any board members to brief commissioners, and there's been no request for that at this point in time.
So we don't hear any pushback?
Yeah, and I've made sure if there's any issues, any questions, anything you need, reach out to us, and they've said
I was thinking of going anyway, just, it doesn't hurt to be there.
Sure.
In
Did you-
case a question comes up.
Did you have a comment back on Island Village?
Yeah, this may not be the time.
Okay.
It has to do with safety and security with the
I'm sorry, can you come up here?
Having safety and security, I don't know if this is the time, I don't know, we're in the front end of discussions with them, so they're building. You can make your comment.
I live at 623 Mulberry Avenue. My name's Brian Maruschek. Please call me Brian, and I spell it the correct way also. Just with more traffic coming into Celebration with this new development, I understand the plans, and it's going to be an attraction. I mean, let's face it, people come to Celebration from all over the world, all over the United States, locally, and it's just going to be more traffic, more people, and maybe some undesirables that maybe there's a way we can track them. I don't know. My house was broken into on December 20th, and it was ransacked, and it was not pretty. And, once again, traffic, no security, lots of strangers from all over the world were there. And, like I said, I don't want to bog this meeting down, but it was not pretty. I mean, they went through all 3 stories, dumped all my drawers out. So they've made my life a mess.
So we'll share that with Island Village, and I think that's a separate discussion about safety and security in the community. I know we've had ongoing discussions, but that's a longer discussion. But thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
And we will share that with the Mattamy leaders. Osceola County, I think we're at closure on.
Correct.
March porch and yard sale.
I just want to thank management for further reviewing the issue that we had. The tables weren't available. There was apparently some confusion, but that was straightened out. So it will be condos first because they don't have a place.
It's very limited, so it will be condos, and most likely only room for condos.
And there was conversation about a possible deposit. Is that something that is happening?
I don't know that we need a deposit for such a small amount of funds, but it is something that the Recreation, or the Special Events Committee and management will discuss for the fall.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
The tables are continuing, so thank you.
And that's going to be here, just to reiterate, because we talked about possibly moving the site, but it will be here at the usual place.
Yeah, and just limited, though. It won't
March
be
2nd.
wide
It's very
open,
limited, so come
for
fast, come soon.
Condos.
60
condo
tables?
associations.
How many?
About 60 tables, right?
20?
60.
Was it 20? Or
60.
60.
60.
Oh, 60, not 80, I'm sorry, so it's 20 less, right? 20 less, yeah. 20 less.
Okay. You have a comment on this?
Yes, I do. I reside at 1528 Resolute Street. My only concern is when the porch and yard sales come, people park illegally everywhere. They go the wrong way down one-way streets. They block alleys. They do, and I understand that this is not Celebration, that this is the Osceola County Sheriff's Department. Is there a possibility we can get more people out in Spring Lake? Last year, I waited 20 minutes to get out of my alley because people were parking in the alley, blocking driveways. They were blocking the entire alley. I mean, there's parking for them. They need to park in those parking spots. It's just, again, it's enforcement is what I'm concerned about. And we have kids up there, and, they're going through stop signs and all that. Just more presence up in Spring Lake with the Osceola County Sheriff's Department. Can we ask for that?
We can make them aware.
Yeah.
And
ask.
say,
We can
hey,
ask.
there's an opportunity to increase your bottom line.
All right,
Some
thank you.
tickets out there. Thank you.
Can always try, thank you.
Anything else on porch and yard sale? Community volunteer application form, is a matter of the update on that? Is there anything we need to review?
No, it's all been updated.
Okay.
I actually have, they're compiling the information
Okay.
for the technology.
Okay.
I just have one thing. Is there a way we can just acknowledge to people that we've received it? Just an acknowledgement of a receipt, because I know there's some confusion when one person came in and
So when
they
there's an
didn't know about
application?
it, and they didn't get a return call, and it kind of
Well,
drug
the
on.
ones that we received over the weekend, and we received 2 of them, they drop them off, they date stamp them up front, so they know that they've been received. But I think I can certainly make that part of the process moving forward, that
That'd be great. I think I have one I need to ask you about to check on later for me. Thank you, Susan.
So we have an updated form, so that's good. And that was board feedback a few months ago.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Then there was an item on farmer's market contract, and I think that was because there was a proposed change in that?
There were 2 proposed
There was something
changes.
that I was asked to sign, and it was deferred,
There were 2 proposed changes.
and I said that needed to be brought to the board, and I don't know what the items were.
Okay, the first one was they wanted to assign a 1-year contract as opposed to a 2-year contract. And the other issue was Yes, the out clause, they wanted it to be changed from 7 days to 30 days. So, and that's for them or for us. So they could give us 7-day notice and we don't have a farmer's market person, or, you know, the 30 days kind of protects both of us.
And so what we signed was a 2-year contract.
Right.
That's what we approved in December or November, whenever it was.
So there was a change made, but the change contract wasn't distributed to the board?
We just got it back from them, and they said, we want to change these 2 things. And so that just came in this past week.
Yeah, and it will require the board president's signature on it.
And I wouldn't sign it because of a change which requires the board.
Can I ask
like
that
to
you
see the
distribute it to
Get
the
a
whole
copy of
board?
that?
Yeah, I'd like
So
to
that's
see
the issue to the whole board.
So currently, it's, we have a vendor, but we're not under contract, is that correct?
They actually made the changes
We signed
on,
it.
no, they are under contract. They actually made the changes on their contract that they executed, that David had signed, and that's fine. So we have the insurances, we have everything, but we haven't approved that contract.
Right, because without David initialing those changes, it's
Exactly.
invalid. Okay.
Exactly.
Can you go over to, Steve, a little of the history of why it was moved from downtown and put back?
That's,
or not?
I think the issue is whether we change it from 2 years to 1. That's the issue on the table.
I'd like to see it.
Am I correct?
Most contracts that we do have are for 1 year.
Yeah. And this one
So for
was a little
consistency-
different, that became 2 years.
I mean, I'd
which
rather
we-
2, but.
Which is what we approved.
consistency 1.
What other changes were there?
Just the
30-day out clause rather than
the
7.
30-day
Really,
out.
if it's
and
the exact same contract and it's just 1 year with a 30-day out clause, I mean, to me, we ought to just say.
Those are reasonable changes
We
to
can still
me.
get it to the board, but if you all are okay with approving that today.
I move to approve it.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have a
I would
second?
second.
Okay, we have a second from Brian. So those are the 2 changes. Nothing else changes from what we already approved in December. Any further discussion on that?
Can we make a couple comments on the farmer's market? Is that okay?
Is that relevant to?
Bad.
Yes, I'd like to.
Nothing bad. I just wanted to check with this previous week, it was great, so thank you, JR. It did come out very nice. Was there a county permit picked up for that area around the water fountain, just as a CYA for CROA? Awesome. If we're going to put it at that location every week, I'd like to see if we can look into getting a nice sign for the farmer's market, for shutting down that area. It would really make it look a lot more
Signage?
presentable.
Nice
So
sign.
currently, we actually borrow Lexington's sign. I don't think that's fair to them, fair to us. It's nice for a partnership, but if we're doing it every week, it might be a nice
Well,
sign to have there.
that's the Department of Transportation signage for the
No,
town.
the events,
The events.
street closed.
Now, the close for events.
Well, that goes out for everything. We are in the process working with the farmers market for signage for new A-frames.
Awesome.
And the permit was filed. The county is processing it, so we should have it shortly.
That's awesome. When they do have trash at the end of their events, where does that trash go?
They are responsible for taking the trash.
Okay, so it is not going to town center dumpsters, because
No.
that's not fair to Lexington, it's not fair to the residents upstairs. Okay. And then we did see a lot of the same vendors that happened this week. There were a lot of new ones as well. Do you get a list of who's there each week?
We've gotten a list to
Nice.
approve vendors, which I do share with Lexington as well, for there's no conflicts downtown. So every new application that they get in, obviously there's been more right now because it's the first week, we do review them.
Cool. And then the last thing, I know that at some of their other events up in Winter Garden and Winter Park, they do music and they have live entertainment and things like that. It might be worth looking into if they want to do that, maybe working with the CDD to have them put up on the Esplanade there. Might be something to just continue that partnership. So just some thoughts, some
Kind of like they
feedback.
do with a wine
It
stroll.
was awesome.
The
Thank
Art
you.
and Wine Stroll has music.
Yeah, I have one comment. I don't know if it's coming up under the replacement reserves or whatever, but it's just cosmetic. Those tents are looking sad.
They're not our tents. The vendors bring their own tents.
I know, but sometimes we put up some tents for some other things. Is there any thoughts? Do we have tents that we can?
We have tents, but you're going to get into a labor issue now. We don't have the staff, or we don't have this budgeted to set up and break down our equipment like that.
Okay, they just look kind of, so it's all their tents, that's why it's so mishmashed. Okay,
Sarah?
thank you.
JR, how do we pick the vendors, individual vendors in there? What's the criteria for that?
The vendors applied through the organizer. The organizer will screen them first, and if the organizer's okay with them, then they'll forward them to us to see if we have any issues with them. I'll forward them over to Lexington to make sure that they don't have any issues as far as conflicts with, if there's any food being prepared on site or other items being sold.
Are they trying to get more farmers market, a real farmers market feel for vendors, rather than, the past, it looks like a lot of that stuff just came in from a grocery store. and put it in a crate and sold it.
They deal
at the
with,
farmer's market.
they deal with a produce vendor. I know David's familiar with them from Winter Garden. It's the same vendor.
Same vendor.
And he's looking to expand the footprint down here as well. And I know from
So
talking,
yeah, there were two large produce vendors yesterday. The one that was there from before and the one from Winter Garden.
and from talking to
And that
the
alleviates
organizers,
your question.
talking to the organizers yesterday, they actually have another 25 applicants for, they're looking to come in, so.
But no space right there.
No, we'd have to look expanding on the market, or Front Street at that point.
What's the expanse that we can actually extend that to? Is all the way down the market down to the curb where CROA owns as well?
If we expand, it would be probably on the Front Street, and it would be
On
between
Front
the
Street.
Tavern and Columbia, just like it's closed for other events.
Can we vote on the motion?
I just want to say I would vote for the motion, subject to having a copy of the interlineated document. I just want to know that we've seen it and that it's given to us and it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So if you could amend your motion to say.
I will amend
subject-
to include the printed copy for each of.
And I
second that.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That's it for all the quick updates. We have half a dozen major things in the next 1 hour. Is there a comment here having to do with farmers market? No. Okay. Next item, we had approvals. We lost our signal. We have 2 items to approve that I think have to do with the Recreation Athletic Complex. One is approval of a change order, number 8.
Yeah, if you want to do the motion in a second, then I can give the update on it.
Okay. Jack is moving, change order number 8 for the athletic field complex in the amount of $22,568.54. And Vaughn has seconded.
Okay. Steve, can you just update?
Rationale on that?
Yeah, so we meet bi-weekly with ONCO and with CDD and just the other stakeholders that are involved in this project. And we asked them a couple weeks ago to just look through the end of this project to see what other upcoming forecasted change orders they can foresee, so I could get them all on one agenda item. So you can see here there was some TCC review plan changes for the pavilion that had some additional costs, concession building changes, but then there was some credit coming in for fire line that was rerouted, which saved some pipes and some other costs for that. And then for the roof drain tie-in, all part of these TCC changes, there's some credits for that. And then the conduit was run all the way out for a possible future boardwalk. So that's your total amount for the change orders. And this is what is foreseen to date, barring any obstacles, variables that we're just not aware of. This is the last change order for the athletic field complex.
I have a question on the conduit to boardwalk future use. Did you work with the CDD on that? Do they know where that needs to be?
It's just out there
Where it needs to be?
Yeah, where it needs to be. If
So you have
down
access.
the road, we get a boardwalk through there, it'll
Perfect.
be available for it.
Perfect. And just for, if anyone doesn't know, that's to connect the ball fields are being built, the 3 ball fields to the North Village, hopefully down the road, right? Yeah.
Just to
Go
be
to the
clear, on
CDD
this,
meetings to ask for
Keep
that
asking for
boardwalk.
that, yeah. So
When
the
you
kids
do,
can't get over.
when you mentioned the deleted fire line, I just want to make sure, you mentioned it was rerouting. I think the sprinklers were taken out of the building.
Correct, yeah, and then
Entirely.
there was
So
a
it's not that
rerouting.
they were rerouted,
Right.
they were
Yeah, because
removed.
there's no cooking or anything taking place there, it's just pre-prep food.
And it was
that will
based
be
on a
served.
recommendation between ARCO and the
Yes.
architect and things like that.
Right.
Okay, so then, when we went into this, we had originally said a $4,250,000 plus a $250,000 contingency. We've had some pluses or minuses, so we're well within our contingency. In the last meeting, Steve had mentioned a number like 3.6 or 3.7, but that did not include the lighting. So just so that we have clarity of the board here, this is still about a $4,250,000, $4,300,000 project. This is just truing up of some of the pluses and minuses. Right now, we're under the $4,500,000, well within our contingency. So just everybody's got the picture. Is
And I'll
that
give
fair?
you a breakdown for the February management report. in the management.
and just to be clear, when one sees net change of almost $750,000, that's really mainly the concession and restroom building.
Correct, yes.
So it's not these little change orders added up.
Yeah, the concession building was a change.
That
order.
was a change order to the same vendor, because we looked at other vendors.
But again, that $3,556,000 does not include the lights, which is another, I forget, Steve,
It's
6 or
around
7, something like that.
600,000,
So
right.
just,
Right.
don't think we found $1 million. We didn't find $1 million.
It's not that, $1 million savings.
The pieces.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor for this item. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a second approval of ECDD fees for utility receipt in the amount of $13,424.34. We have a motion?
Motion to approve.
And second from Kevin. Debbie?
This discussion, the billing on this has been crazy. Has this all been checked, or what happened on, was it part of their billing change?
It's part of getting the meters set up and getting everything out there, because to get this out installed, they need to have the water up and running. So we have to get this approved and pay this so that they can have it all turned on within the next week or so.
Okay, great, okay. Just so you know, if you're out there, check your ECDD bills. They've changed the system, and somebody got a bill for $114,000, and some people got...
Any discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the licensing agreement for the landscape debris dumpsters, and we've had some follow-on discussion on that. I think there was some informal discussion about that space. Once we saw that there were 3 potential contracts for dumpsters, perhaps that could be for pickleball.
I sent an email here.
Could you go back to the visual, Steve, before this?
This one?
No, the
Just the
visual.
layout. So I sent an email after the last meeting. This was to put dumpsters close to the CCD building. I really didn't want to do that. If we're going to have dumpsters, I would rather use that space, which everybody's going to see driving into the athletic complex. We talked about pickleball courts. We have not approved them. But I said, let's use that space. Let's look at putting tennis courts and pickleball courts there, or something that looks attractive when we come in. If we're going to have debris dumpsters, which, by the way, we need, then let's put them all the way back in the back. That was my request. We can go all the way back past the athletic complex. We've got to have them, but then they're not the signal thing that people are going to see when they drive in. I'd rather they'd see nice tennis courts and pickleball courts or something. We're trying to come up with solutions that make that an athletic complex look nice and are attractive to celebration.
And I occasionally agree with Brian, actually often agree with Brian, but I don't want to be there with our dogs and have something smelly, and I just think the dumpsters can be put at a different place.
So with that as background, Todd.
Outline what we have here.
Yeah.
Well, let me get a better understanding. When you say past the athletic fields, where were you thinking?
So where,
We don't know.
where
I'll leave that to you.
because I walked back there this weekend, so like where the synthetic turf, I'm saying go all the way back there in the back.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that, because you don't want heavy trucks driving past the athletic fields all the time and breaking down that
How often would that be?
road.
Daily.
Well, and that's a good point, and that was one of my concerns too, is these heavy trucks do break down the road, and these roads, which we had to pay for with the
Well, there's 2
CDD.
different roads. You've got the asphalt, and then you have the concrete path
Right.
that's for emergency vehicles only, going down the side of the athletic field. So really wasn't built and designed for daily activity on that roadway.
I'm
So
talking 3 dumpsters, right?
yeah,
So let's look,
we're talking 3 different
before we look at pros and cons, show us the space and show us what the options might be.
So, we originally came up with this, so it would not cost CROA out of pocket for a dumpster site for landscape debris only. So, we're not talking garbage, we're not talking vultures, we're talking landscape debris. We have, on the site plan, it basically...
Just to the right of that is the CCD building, right?
This is the CDD building. That's their complex. Their chain link fence comes out to here. Obviously, you've got the large dog park. You have the standing trees here, and then you have an empty area right in here with the driveway approach existing. So we were looking at coming on this side of this big tree here, right about in here, coming down and across. You would have, that's about the size of a dumpster right there. So you can have landscape debris dumpsters lined up here. The trucks can enter, dump their debris. The dump truck that picks up the dumpsters can back in and take off with it and be done. So you still have all this area here for future stuff. You'd lose all the trees to do pickleball and tennis, but that's part of site development. You can only go back as far as this line right here and about right up in here, because this is a dry detention pond that's designed to drain the dog park as well as some of the CDD.
So what, just so I can clarify that, you're saying nothing can be done here, right?
Right.
So if we had courts, the courts would be right here.
Correct.
And how many could you fit in there? You said between 6 and 9, right?
Yeah, from my guesstimations, it was what, 34 by...
But I
So
4 to
34 by
board.
64, you could get 12 of them in there. If you take up to this drainage easement right here, you smush them together, you could probably get 9 of them in there.
Can we back up for just a moment? And I am a fan of using this space for recreation first, so I want to put that out there. What is the reason? There's not dumpsters currently in Celebration for these landscapers, correct?
There are not. The main reason for that is there is a storage facility across from the hospital. Won't name company names, but there is a storage facility there. And the landscape companies have been utilizing outdoor spots for some dumpsters, and they're not allowed to do that in the very near future. So they're scrambling, trying to come up with dumpster locations. We have, the CDD has a street sweeper that sticks a dumpster here. That's right along the street. We have no area for our maintenance department to put landscape debris, because they pick up weeds all day long. And then the 2 landscape companies that we have for our service area and for our CROA landscape. This is to.
So I understand working with the vendor and trying to be as accommodating as we possibly can. We do not operate our own landscape company, our own sanitation, whatever you want to say, and we have a vendor for that. That's because that is their job to figure out. I'm sorry to be that way. And I don't want it to be at the expense of looking at trash or smelling trash when we're at our recreation. Gerard at the CDD building, I believe, is actually leaving that parcel. Have we reached out or connected Yellowstone and the other vendors to the CCDD building to see if they wanted to go ahead and rent the space behind there? Because that's what it's currently used for, that they're now leaving.
Right. Actually, no, because the CDD came to us, Russ, asking for some help for dumpsters on our side.
And I appreciate that, and I know that we're very tight on space. I mean, we have such limited land left, but we used to have that area full of dumpsters or trash, whatever, or landscaping from Davie. They were moved to the storage that we will not name. And again, I don't know where they're going to go, but I don't want it there. I mean, I'd rather have a small garden plot or the pickleballs in the garden plot together, but to use it for dumpsters is just not a wise use of our space.
I just want to add, just so you have all the facts when you're making this decision, when we presented a conceptual design, CROA, back in 2013 to TCC for acquisition of this land, this space that Todd's identifying was always identified as a maintenance area. So I don't know if that influences your decision one way or the other, so I wanted you to have that information.
Yeah, and just a follow-up on that for the history. It was a maintenance area, and Steve, I believe you had everything completely moved out of there from the maintenance area because...
Davie utilized this whole dog park area, and then Gerard had a service agreement down in this area that we're
And
considering
Davie had the trailer, but it was all moved out, and
Yeah.
I thought it looked great. I just don't want a small trash. Come to the mic if you have a comment.
Jack, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I got a comment. What I'm thinking about, you see the sidewalk up there, we need to create parking spaces for a pickleball court there. If we created that and they asked the CDD to eliminate their parking on the west side of the building and use that track there for dumpster space, we would be able to provide them plenty of parking for that building.
I think it's whatever site development we do on that site, it's a matter of drainage and then just reworking the sidewalk. It would just kind of run in line with the existing sidewalk. They'd have to tear it all up and rebuild it, essentially.
I think there's still a lot of questions on this. I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Second.
Can
Second from
we,
Jackson.
can we assign a board member to work with Steve and maybe the CCDD to just look for other options?
Multiple options.
Yeah. I'd be happy to work on it, or anyone else.
I'll work with it.
Want to do it?
Vaughn will do it. Yeah, because what we have on the table was approving this for dumpsters, and then we've had alternative discussions, and now we have follow-on discussions. So there's lots of moving parts. We don't even know costs at this point.
So we'll make Vaughn our point person to work with Todd and others who want to be involved. I'm not trying to exclude anybody, just so we can move it forward.
Would it be helpful to get some really rough estimates on what things might cost, the different options?
We're not going to be paying for it. It's the vendors.
No, but if we were to do pickleball courts or something else.
To look at estimations. Vaughn,
Well,
can you handle it?
here's the only question I have. I know that we looked at it as a conceptual what would pickleball courts look like, but I
Right.
think we've been saying all along, we're gonna wait for the master plan data.
Right.
It's an asset, it's just, how could the asset be utilized? So, I think we're just kind of shooting in the dark right now until we know what that asset is.
Yeah, I think I'm not set on pickleball as an example, but I do think that we have talked about doing more small projects now that we have a very
Right.
large project done and we're getting ready for other
Okay.
large projects. Let's start getting the small things, the playgrounds, the pickleball.
To be
this,
clear,
that.
I'm not arguing for
Yeah.
one thing. I'm arguing that that is
Just wanted to
one
make
of
sure that was-
the first things people who come in will see. It
Yes.
ought to be beautiful, whatever it is.
But, and that's what I'm saying, I'm not a fan of dumpsters there. This is
And
the
let's not
first
lock
time
it
that
off,
this
let's
parcel's
not
been
lock it
brought
off
to
with
this board.
dumpsters yet.
Ron, are you
there's a
good,
motion
or
to
do you
table on
need
the-
someone that's staying to help you?
Few
I'm
seconds.
fine unless anybody else wants to jump in.
Are we
It's
ready
a
to
motion
move?
to table.
We have a motion to table and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
What's the time frame on the vendor as far as them needing to find a place to put it?
We've been working on it for over a year with them to try and get something
Where's
together.
it going right now? Behind the,
It's in the storage across from the hospital.
And is that
So-
because of
I mean, they can
no
come up with
change?
other things until then.
Okay, so the next item is Technology Committee volunteer appointments.
We had two more people put their information in Friday, late Friday, I believe it was Friday, and Saturday. So I made copies for you, just so you have them.
So are these people who had previously applied but used an old form, which basically didn't have much information?
We have not gotten them to give us a new form at this point in time, but before the March meeting, absolutely.
Okay,
While
so,
we're-
Is it
Sorry,
requested?
David, sorry to interrupt. While we're doing that, there was someone that raised their hand in the audience. Did you have a comment on the, did you want to come up? I can't, if you can come up, sorry.
on the dumpsters?
Okay. Yeah, come on down.
Very, very quick, just since I have a background in science, landscape debris ad infinitum, you have lots of herbicides and pesticides that are in this landscape debris, and if you keep it on a pile, you know, forever and forever and ever, you're going to have a lot of that toxin not up in the air, and not just up in the air, but also infiltrating the water, which could contaminate further our water supply, which is not the best water supply
Okay.
in the state of Florida. So I would really look at other ways of eliminating this
Okay.
debris just for our kids' future, if nothing else.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
So the two people who turned in their applications are the last two in that packet. Everyone else you had at the board meeting. It's Erica Opegard and Al Groves.
Thank you so much. So they can all be considered, right?
So they can all be considered,
Terrific.
right?
Thank you for doing that. These are very thorough and much more impressive than what we used to receive, and thanks, Jackson, for sprucing these up.
But three of them, I think, from the earlier review, we have nothing,
I
we
think
don't
it
have
was
the details.
requested- I think, Jackson, you may have requested an update.
I did. I
You
did.
did?
Yeah.
Was that
The update-
communicated to them? Was that communicated to the
The update
original?
has been done. We just finalized it last week.
My question is, was that communicated with the original applicants?
It has not been communicated to
Oh, that's
the
what we asked.
original applicant.
I don't think we can move on this, can we?
We can't, no, because
We don't have updated information, so I don't think we can move on this
Well, I
item.
think we need the updates. I think we need to study the other two. If we've got 5 out of 9, my only question is, do we have a process for how we're going to weed it down to 5?
Stemming back to the original reason to table it was because it was requested to have everybody up at the same, and that
Same type of
hasn't
form.
happened.
Right. So
I
this,
will request that from everyone.
So this is just
Is
gonna
it
keep getting
possible-
pushed. This is something that, I mean, we're going on 3 months, guys.
Do you want to
Okay,
put it
but-
on the 27th, Kevin, the meeting?
we need to,
Agenda?
can we
I
move?
would like to. I thought we were gonna do it today because I
thought we
thought
were-
that
I
Matt was
make a
gonna reach
motion,
out.
we move this
but
to the
Kevin,
regular
hasn't
meeting.
happened.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion, we move this to the regular agenda for the meeting in February so that Kevin can get moving on this.
Can you amend the motion to
Yes.
ensure that management reaches out to the original applicants today to go
Amending
ahead
the
and
motion
have the
that the
request
original applicants
completed?
are reached out to today, so we have a complete packet. And perhaps it could be emailed to the board ahead, so we're ready to go?
I
That'd be great.
definitely will email it to you.
So I amended the motion. Is there a second?
Second from Vaughn.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're Debbie, she's
Oh, I'm
asking
sorry.
to,
Yes, I'm sorry. Amend the motion to have this reviewed at our regular board meeting this month and that management is going to reach out and get the complete information and email the board today, get the information today and email it when they have it. Or at least request the information today. And it was seconded by Vaughn.
And I am glad,
Is that good, Rachel?
I am glad we have interest in this. It's just hard to review applications when we get them in our hands without any quiet time to look at them.
But thank you for
But
doing
I'm
that.
glad we have
Glad we have
a lot to review. So,
we have a lot to do.
And then the only last conversation I have is, Kevin, since you're a point person, can you actually give us feedback on the 9 people as you think about how the committee should be constructed? I mean, just something for us so that we know kind of how your thoughts are?
and it might also be diversity. It might not be, I mean, there might be 5, don't know, 5 people who have identical credentials, so it's maybe having some breadth.
Yeah, we
When
can,
you think of
I mean, my
technology.
priority will be, if you're not already on a committee, then I'd like to see you on it, before somebody that's already on other committees. That's where I'm starting off with, and then we'll review it.
I would find, yeah, 'cause I would find it very helpful on 27th if you came back, these are the 5 people you're thinking of, this is why and how
Perfect.
you're thinking about constructing it, so we can sit there and say, that makes sense or it doesn't, but at least then it's.
I have one comment for that.
Go
Can I
ahead.
speak?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
There is someone, I see an application that is currently the head of another committee, but their spouse is running for the board, so I still would like them to be considered, because if they, their spouse should win the election, they would have to resign from that committee, because there's 2 committees. You cannot be related to someone on the board, and that is covenants in ARC. So with that
That'll be
exception.
part
in
of
mind-
that
Thanks.
conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the table to
Motion on the table.
put this on the,
Regular.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll have this on the February agenda. Next item is annual meeting content. We put this on months ago because the annual meeting happens annually. It's on Wednesday, March,
It is an annual, yes.
the first Wednesday of March. And so there was some prior discussion, but we wanted to have a workshop topic about input, feedback, suggestions for the annual meeting content.
I have suggestions. Go ahead, Jackson.
I appreciate the effort that goes into doing this annual meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity to celebrate what's been accomplished. But it seems like a lot of BS to me. And ultimately, I would much rather we do what we did at I'm sorry. It's a long weekend, and I didn't like football. But I think we can be more productive with that meeting by doing what we did at the 6-month point of doing a Q&A town hall. I'd much rather do that. I'm not happy saying to you, we don't want to talk about your issue right now. There's a time and a place for those conversations, and I think the annual meeting is a place where we can have that conversation. And I think just standing up and showing all of the wonderful things we did in the past year is really an exercise in self-aggrandizement, and I don't think we need to do that. So I'm hopeful that we can say thank you to our departing board members, welcome to our new board members, and let's get on with the business at hand and use that meeting productively, rather than having a gala presentation party.
I would like to echo some of that. Thank you, Jackson, for those comments. This will be my 4th and last, very excited, annual meeting, but
As a board member.
as a board member. As a board member. And I do appreciate the trouble that they go to. They provide a lot of wonderful food. I don't think we need the ice sculpture. That was kind of, I feel, a waste of money. But I think the town hall style, to me, is much more comfortable and friendly. I have noticed last year and the year before that board members that were exiting were not attending for whatever reason. But I think if it could be more interactive. Also, if this is the one and only meeting that residents attend, they think we just drink champagne and have a party and hand out a bunch of certificates, and that's not really what we do. I think it should be more representative of what we are doing for our community. We have a great community, and again, I apologize for not having open public comment. We will have that at the annual meeting and all normal meetings that we have, the regular meetings. But I think it's an opportunity to make a couple changes, and maybe a few of us can work on that. I'd be happy to work on some changes with management or whatever.
Other comments about annual meeting? Is there, now, when we had a town hall meeting 6 months ago, 5-6 months ago, it was totally town hall meeting. Might there be, in an annual meeting, some blend?
Well, I think
maybe some recap, some highlights without spending an hour or
definitely need
just
to
a thought.
recognize the volunteers. And Steve, that takes about 20, 30 minutes?
Not even, yeah, it's about 10 minutes probably. You know what?
That could be moved to February.
I'd echo what Jackson was saying. I'd like it to be less of a show and tell and more of a productive meeting, so.
Yeah. So maybe that's the guidance, less of a show and tell. So it's not throw out the old, it's do a major revamp.
Major rehab.
Would that be fair?
Major, yeah.
How long do you want the meeting to be?
How long has it been historically?
It's been about 2 hours.
Has it been that long?
I think we have right now advertised from 6 to 6:30, just the social opportunity, and then the meeting starting at 6:30, so about an hour and a half. Usually you start losing people's interest after about an hour and a half.
They come to eat, let's face it. If we had snacks before every meeting, we'd probably have better attendance. If you have food, they will come, right?
So we're looking at 6:30 to 8.
We've done 2 of these where I have seen people come who don't normally come, and I think the value of the pre-session is you do get cornered as board members, and you have people give you feedback that don't normally give you feedback. So I just would hate to lose the pre-session, that's all I'm saying.
Hate to lose
the
what?
pre-session. So
Oh,
when
I
you're
think
having that glass of
the
wine.
pre-session is
yours
great.
burnt,
If we mix the
not
ice
burnt,
scalp,
bent
sir,
by
I'm great with it.
people, so I think that's great. And however you want to do the 90 minutes, I don't care.
Yeah, focus on 90 minutes, focus on more interaction.
Yes.
Rather than show and tell. Maybe some highlights.
And maybe even more time to recognize volunteers if we're doing less show and tell, because I really, these people work all year long. Steve sitting in the back, who's being very quiet there, unbelievable amount of time.
So highlight the volunteers.
I think the volunteers.
I love highlighting volunteers. And then having some dialogue, however that gets framed, with residents.
We looked at, after the September mid-year meeting, we talked about the annual meeting, just setting up the same way that we had that meeting, starting off the meeting with just some highlights of some of the projects that you're working on, not the full review, but just some of the big issues like we did in the September meeting. And then you could open it up, or you could do the volunteer first and give out some awards for that, and then do the question and answer, or you could do that right after the update discussion, and then have the volunteers write it.
Right. Steve usually does a script for us, which is very nice, but maybe we could get that done a little bit early and with these changes and try to do more feedback.
Well, it sounds like it'll be more just you all sitting there answering questions more than anything scripted at all.
I'm sorry, not a script, but an outline.
So, Debbie, you offered to work with them. Did you offer, or did I hear you, or no?
They didn't.
I'm not asking.
Yeah.
Is there, or more broadly, is there anyone who would like to work with Steve and the team? Or
If nobody else would like to, then yeah.
Just to try to help. We're dealing with a month from now.
Yeah, we'll do
Okay,
it.
why don't we put Debbie, Kevin, and Steve in charge of coming out with an agenda and approach for the evening? I'm happy with that.
That's fine.
And just send any suggestions prior from the audience or Jackson, anything to me, and Kevin and Steve, if you would. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll look to try and schedule a meeting with you
Good.
too
So,
sometime
Cindy?
this week.
Well, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
So at one time, we used to have at least a table with what was going on in Parks and Rec. And there'd be a staff member there that would, talk to people and whatever. I'm sitting there now thinking that maybe we could do something like that, but have the committees represented, because somebody's going to be there anyway, because, that's when we recognize the volunteers. And that'll do several things. That'll introduce the community to people that are on these committees.
Good.
It might spark some interest on being on one of these committees. They can all have their little forms there and, come join us, it's fun, blah, blah, whatever, and kind of give a sales pitch for those
Good.
committees.
Good.
Yeah, that's a great
Just to
suggestion.
kind of, and then to prompt questions for later on.
That's a great suggestion. Also, Steve, just before I forget, we might have a table, people are always wondering, or some people are wondering, how to sign up for the Friday Flash and Seller Service, and maybe we could offer some assistance with that. That would be fabulous.
Yeah, even
maybe
a tech
committee-
table. Do you have problems with your, are you registered for the Friday Flash?
So committee tables, and maybe not just committee members, but also the staff liaison, or not staff liaison,
Absolutely.
the staff member.
I
Good.
picture Tony or Patrick or somebody with their
Why-
computer that can help
Why don't
sign
you,
people
why
up.
don't you work on that?
We will.
Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you.
If that's possible. Thank you, Cindy.
An item
Anybody
called,
else? Okay.
item CCS updates.
Do you want to do a brief?
So the update,
David?
The update is we have a meeting.
okay,
Oh,
something back on annual meeting? Well, we're going to put that, we're going to start talking about it, then we'll invite you. But let's start talking, just in terms of why we have it on the agenda.
okay. CCS is the Celebration Community Service, and it's added to the agenda because we have a meeting today at 11:15. And I think just a brief history, it was formed in 2006, and we're going to just mainly talk about it more at the 11:15.
Yeah, okay, so the 11:15 to 11:30 meeting, we're hoping is more perfunctory, and we're hoping that really we can have the conversation with the whole board here, because CCS has got one member, which is CROA. So, you know.
This is the membership of CCS, the 7 of us.
So,
by contract.
Actually, it includes the entire membership.
No, it's just the board.
No, it's the board.
It's just the board.
According to the,
Okay.
the board.
We noticed the membership for this meeting. Yeah.
Which is the board.
let's say
Yeah,
you make
okay.
a comment, and then let's just have.
okay, why don't you make your comment and
Yeah.
Come on up, make your comment, and then we'll
have our discussion.
conversation around your comment.
Concerning CCS, which I just found about this weekend, never knew it even existed. I happened to post on the back porch one of the pages from the magazine on the celebration organizations, just so people know what the meanings are in the alphabet soup. And I got a couple of personal messages saying there may be one or more groups missing from that. CCS. I go, what's CCS? And I begin asking people in the community, what's CCS? I don't know, what's CCS? Like, what is CCS? Nobody knows what CCS is. Why isn't it in the organization of celebration? Everything is in this, and there's no CCS. What is it? As a member of Celebration and a homeowner of 2 homes, do my dues go towards this? Where does the money go? What is it? It's just 3 letters out of the sky this weekend that I learned about. What is it? Who runs it? When did it come about? And why does nobody ever talk about it?
Do you want
Wanna do
to
the-
answer it?
Okay, you want me to take the first shot, and then we can just add to it?
I'll add to it, sure, go ahead.
Okay, it's celebration services, community services, to be more specific. It came into play in 2006. It is a 501c4. I actually, can I work off of this up here for people? Expand that so people can see it. So this, and Debbie's been helpful here and other things, so we got financials. There's been one board, okay. So there's been one board meeting of this group, to the best of my knowledge, since it was formed, and that was in 2016 when we went to, did the July 4th thing. It should have an annual budget, it should have a regular board meeting. It didn't. So that's a faux pas. We can fix that going forward. It's really used for experienced Kissimmee grants. So if you look at the balance sheet up here, at the end of 2018, it has $80,000 of cash. It has an accounts receivable of $20,000 from CJC, which we're right here, and I've got a recommended, and then like a 2019 beginning. So we get that settled, so then we'll have $110,000 of cash with a couple other moves. It's got some furniture and fixtures net of about $1,800. It's got merchandise inventory of $9,000. Debbie and I had a meeting. Our recommendation to the board is that the merchandise sales should just be part of CROA. They don't need to be part of CCS. They don't have to be part of a 501c4. It doesn't make sense. So let's sell those to CROA. So then basically you would have $110,000 in cash, some small liabilities of $800, just normal junk. Prepaid events income of $7,500 is actually money that we receive from Posh Pooch. And if you can bounce this up a little, Steve. So what's really going through here now is Experience Kissimmee grants. We've got the Posh Pooch grant, which is a CCS, Celebration Community Services event run by CROA. You all know what Posh Pooch is. Mm-hmm. It's got Now Snowing, which is a Lexan celebration event. It's got Oktoberfest, which is a Lexan celebration event. And it's got Hearts of Reality, which is a Lexan celebration event. Experience Kissimmee
deals with 501c4s, so this was set up so that the grants could be utilized through. It's got-
So who, when you say this is a Lexington celebration event, where does the money that they make go? I don't know if I'm asking the right question. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not a numbers person. I'm asking, where does the money
I don't know
go?
that we're sure at this point, so he's gonna go through it.
So as I understand it, and Steve and Susan can correct me, the Experience Grammy consent would go into CCS. That money would then go to Lexington Celebration, who would then run the event. Experience Kissimmee actually comes in and audits these events and looks at these things, and the monies received are used. There is a grant process you use to get it. There's a grant filled out every single year for Experience Kissimmee on each of these events, and it talks about marketing, whether it be in the Orlando Sentinel, what you do online, other types of media and stuff like that. So each one of these is ran as a grant, where subject to the grant that was filled out, the funds come through CCS, go to the person running the event.
Let me just add something there, Brian. The grants are filled out by, Jerry's filling out most of them now, but they're filled out by CCMC staff, as far, for the ones I've seen. I'm not sure about all of them. But the audit is only done if Experience Kissimmee chooses to audit the organization. And JR, I don't know that we've had an audit, except for Posh Pooch.
We were audited for Posh Pooch last year.
For Posh Pooch, which I have reviewed those forms. They're very, very, very thorough. The other ones are not. Go ahead.
I just have one question. Why does the Experience Kissimmee grants go through CCS instead of just going directly to Lexington? Why can't it go directly to them?
Because it's got to go through a 501c4, as I understand
Okay,
it.
that's
So
the
this is
reason,
actually,
okay.
and the reason.
So we're like a
I actually did some
Yes,
reading this weekend.
yes.
The 501c4s are tax things that are set up for community events. So give me a minute here. The community events can include a homeowners association. So when you read the language on a 501c4, it's very limited. So it's got to go through a homeowners association to qualify that for this. So this was set up in 2006 to go through for these types of events. And this is the IRS law, so that's why this company was set up. It can't go directly, and it's got to be used. Experience Kissimmee requires it to be a regional event, which requires regional advertising, and they actually are monitoring how many, so that they don't want it to be a celebration event. They want it to be a regional event where you're inviting people, and they're hoping that tourism dollars come in and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, tourism dollars are what's driving Experience.
Can we touch on all of that for a moment? Not too long ago, I did bring up a question. I'm not going to go into detail on it, but of working with Lexington moving forward and that situation. I'm going to let you know I'm very uncomfortable with this. If Lexington wants to go ahead and get their grants, they can go ahead and make that work. For us to be encouraging this and working to be a pass-through, I don't know if that's entirely, I'm going to say it, ethical. I don't know if that's the right thing for us to be doing and putting our owners in. When we go ahead, and we've attempted as CROA to go ahead and work with Lexington on events when it comes to safety, security, and traffic, and we were pushed away, this never came up.
No, it's a.
If we're going to have a partnership, and we're going to scratch each other's back, I mean, we need to work together for this. Who created CCS?
This was created in 2006 by Lee Moore and Pat Wasson.
Well, wait. Lee Moore signed it as president of the board, but CROA established it. The CROA established it. If you look at it, it was a CROA document. Lee Moore signed it.
Actually, it's a separate corporation, but it was established by Lee Moore in partnership. So.
Can Lexington form their own 501c4?
Lexington did not form their own 501c4, and that's a very good.
They cannot?
question.
They cannot.
Okay.
Right, because they're a for-profit
So this was-
corporation. Lexington's a for-profit.
But just for this purpose?
Can I just finish a couple of things on the financials, and then we come back to your point, because you're raising a perfectly valid question. So you got really these four things. You move out the inventory, this other stuff. Down here, CJC has given $20,000 of income in one of the last 3 years. So CJC, which is Celebration Joint Committee up above, gets 25% from
CROA and 75% for CROA. So the question was, does any CROA dollars go into this? Sometimes yes, if CJC gives $20,000.
Okay, so can I interrupt you for 1 minute? I'm sorry, but I'm not here for the numbers so much as, why don't the residents of Celebration know who CCS is? And why is it never advertised, and why is it never publicized, and why is Lexington's name at the end of it all the time? Why are they benefiting from our funds and everything that goes on in town? Why isn't it in the table of it's a simple question. Like, when I ask people, who's CCS? They look at me like, what you're missing a letter. I go, no, CCS. And I spent the weekend asking everybody.
Okay, the answer to your question is, good question. So now it's being exposed. I've been on the board 9 months. You know, they've had one board meeting in 11 years, so the question could have been asked in the past too. At the end of the day now, what I will commit to as treasurer, or for at least a short period of time, is that I'll add a 4th page to the monthly financials, which shows CCS financials. So then it gets talked about a little. You know, you can have a relevant question, which Kevin is raising. Do you need CCS? Fine, that's a fair business question. But on the other hand, Posh Pooch goes through it. So are you getting rid of the grant for Posh Pooch 2 is a business question. The reason I was doing the financials is I'm saying the rest of this stuff will really move out. So what it consists of is 4 experienced Kissimmee grants and some money from CJC in certain years. So that is what's going through here when you look at the last 3 years. Then you can raise, why weren't you told about CCS in the past? Probably it was just a mistake. Should have been. Okay, we're trying to correct that now. That's why we got it on the agenda.
That's a long pass if it's been in place since 2006.
We learned about this last week. So we convened ourselves to look at the documentation. So we are new to this. That's why we put it on the agenda for the workshop, so we can discuss it. Because 2 weeks ago, we would have said, what's CCS? We don't know. So why did we, so we are learning about this, and we collectively are talking about it.
Just real quick, just Brian, everybody, I appreciate the update on this. I think we need to do some business to move some, possibly some funds that Brian wants to do. But you may have to go over all that because I think we've noticed this for 11:15, so we've got 25 minutes to get through the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
But all these, if
We
you
have
could
one
stay
other
for
agenda
11:15.
item.
Yeah, we have another agenda item. If you could stay for 11:15, they are very good questions. I was aware of it in 2016, but I can go over that at the other meeting. But I don't remember getting a notice, but I'm sure something was sent out probably. But as far as the Posh Pooch and why we have this, I've got this for the rest of the board. There is someone that used to sponsor the event. They are willing to sponsor the event. I ran into them at the vet office. They sent an email, so I'll pass that down to you guys, or I can give it to you later.
And one more question. Does this also involve now is snowing in town? Does the CCS, are they part of that? And are they part of, is this also part of the Santa's house, anybody making money in town? Is this, are you supposed to be making money in town, or is this supposed to go to charity?
It is supposed to be designated for marketing only, marketing costs.
And I think to clarify, the $20,000 that Brian mentioned, the CJC dollars, which are 25% CANOA, 75% CROA, the only time those dollars have been used through CCS are for Posh Pooch, anything above and beyond the grant that needs to be offset. And then in 2016, when CROA voted to approve CROA running the 4th of July.
Let me touch
on that. So was it used for 4th of July?
Hold on 1 second, because you did bring up something, Posh Pooch. So CJC is 75% funded by CROA. So you could say that 15,000 is coming from CROA for Posh Pooch. Is that right? So up here, it's turning around and it's saying it's 7,500. Is that what I saw? Is what we're receiving from Posh Pooch
on the experience grants
from the grant
to market an event to become regional, whereas the PUD for Celebration is in town center is not to be for regional events; it's for town events. That's what it is for our community.
So I just want people to hear this. Experience Kissimmee grants. Eligible uses of funds include print, radio, television, internet advertising, outdoor signage and banners, posters, flyers, and brochures, professional artwork, graphic design, postage for direct mailing, and other expenditures consistent with Florida statutes related to tourism. So when we talk, so I just want to be careful here now. When we talk about these grants going through, we're not talking about running now, snowing, and whatever the heck that budget is.
This is talking about regional advertising of the things I just discussed there. So please don't leave this room and say CROA is running now snowing. All that's happening is an entity underneath CROA has these grants going through it, which are used for regional advertising. That is what's happening. The CJC, $20,000 in here. We're going to talk about 4th of July fireworks here in a minute. It can get used for some stuff which benefits the town as a whole. So what we're trying to do here is say, for the last 11 years, this wasn't discussed. It doesn't matter why. It
13
just
years.
happened.
13 years.
I have no problem, Steve, in a magazine table of contents, we should add CCS. We'll do that.
Guys.
Well, no, it's a fair question.
If I can, for just a moment, hold on for just a moment. If everybody can kind of keep the comments down, we're having a hard time on the video getting comments there and the minutes getting read right now. So I appreciate the comments. I'd love to hear them. I really would.
So
but please come up here so everybody can hear.
Brian, one thing. When we went through this, I think it was just Monday, it's been a long week, there was income from all the sales of the store, and I believe we want to move all of that back from 2006 to...
Well, really, we're not going to move the history. We're just saying, like this last year, there was $3,000 of net.
Wait, why aren't we moving it? Because it used to be a lot more than that. Like, why are we moving it?
Because we're not going to fix the past. Those monies have been earned.
This is what we have today.
All we're doing is moving the inventory and saying in the future, those income streams will be CROA.
Okay, but if this has never been audited, so if there are things we need to fix, we could on an audit?
There's nothing to fix.
Okay.
I mean,
so to
be perfect, let me answer a question differently. Okay. It's been in existence since 2006. When Disney started all this stuff and everything, there were a lot of merchandise sales. But those funds were earned in past periods. Those funds were used for different purposes, or those funds could have been put in this cash balance up here.
Brian, where were those funds when Disney was selling merchandise? Because CCS didn't exist when Disney was in operation and management.
I don't know about in the late 90s. When this thing started in 2006.
This started in 06. Disney was out by 04, so...
Yeah, it was 2006, so it was created after
so
that.
So this came 2 years after.
So let's go back to where it came from.
That's all I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, going forward, and I'm only talking about going forward, sell the inventory of $9,400 to CROA. We'll still do the sales, but just make it a CROA item because it doesn't.
So move it out of CCS. That's the point.
That's what I'm saying.
I have one other comment. Sorry, Brian. According to the Articles of Incorporation, number 5, the membership is Celebration Residential Owners Association. That does include all members?
It is just CROA, just the CROA board. It is not
According to Article 5,
all the members of the association.
I'm gonna
It's
dispute.
just the association,
Yeah.
which
I'm
the
just gonna
association
dispute
elects. The association elects you all as the representatives of.
I'm going to dispute that. The members are just CROA.
There's one member.
One member.
One member is the organization.
Okay.
One member. One member.
That's
Celebration Residential Owner Association, Inc. includes all of us, right?
One member. The members including...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a dispute on that. Something that's been since 2006, there's a lot of questions and concerns on this. I would motion we table any concerns on this unless there's something we need to do for business to our 11:15 meeting when people are coming to hear about it. And guys, go ahead and take a seat if you'd like. Come on in. Is there anything we need to do other than move those funds, Brian?
We were going to move several funded items.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the moving the funds is a CCS board item unless somebody from the CROA board wants to object. And we're really saying the
We can wait for
merchandise
that.
inventory will be a
So we can
CROA
wait.
item
Okay.
going forward.
Come on out, Mike, so I can't hear you. So you want to do that at 11:15, Brian? I'm sorry.
That was the design.
I'm very thankful that you brought it up. I agree with Kevin to a great extent. I've worked on special events, and I've been one of those people at Posh Pooch who has to hand out little pieces of paper asking people, where they come from, because you have to show, I don't think we have to do it anymore, but you had to show that many people didn't come from Celebration. But when I looked at the budget line, and I see, well, we get this $8,000 in for Posh Pooch. That's great. But all the money has to go to advertising and marketing to get people who are not from Celebration. Posh Pooch to me, could still exist. It would be a smaller event. It would be a celebration event.
And Eileen, you're right, we do have a sponsor.
I think you have to really think, does the board want to sponsor a regional event to get people to know about Celebration?
Eileen, I do have a question for you. At the last meeting, for special events, or 2 meetings ago, rather, we ended up speaking about Posh Pooch for a moment. And I think we were talking about sponsors and gift bags and things like that. Do you know, and JR, do you know if you guys reached out to Wolfgang? Have you reached out already to Wolfgang? Because that's, this email that I'm seeing here, and based on the conversation you're saying you had, that didn't happen.
It did not happen, no.
I'm not trying to put you
She's been willing to
on the spot on
sponsor for a
this,
long
but-
time. I don't think it was the committee. My
General
understanding
would
from
know
the
more than
email
I
is
would.
she called the main number and did not receive a response. So she's willing to respond, she's willing to sponsor, so it doesn't have to be a regional event. I'm sorry, David, hold on, please, let me speak. And I think she's willing to, so if you guys want it to be more of a local event, I think we have a sponsor for $5,000 a year. You don't have to, you can use that however you want. You don't have to spend it on advertising.
I think the sponsors go through JR usually.
So we'll have to find out.
So he wants to
So
take
that
this-
becomes a discussion for the committee to talk through. The agenda here is CCS updates.
Okay.
And so we're talking about moving, like, product sales. We're just talking about cleaning up the budget that we all discovered 1 week ago. That's why this is here. And then there's larger questions that you're raising, which I don't think, which is not really part of the agenda for the CCS meeting, but it can be for future board and future CCS
So
meetings.
is he allowed to speak during the CCS meeting as a board member?
You can speak as a member of the...
I'm a member of the CCS,
Can you-
as a CROA
okay,
board member.
can you
so
speak as a CROA board
Anybody that
member?
has comments, shut them
It's
down.
been publicly noticed.
CCS.
We will have 15 minutes for that, starting in 15 minutes.
Okay, and all I want to make is one closing comment. We're trying to clean up the records with what we're doing now.
That's all we're doing.
Make the entity clearly defined, and if we, as a community and a board, want to move into a direction of not having regional, but having more local type events because of parking, et cetera,
That's right.
great, we can kill CCS. We're not arguing that point, but let's have one board meeting.
That's right.
Let's clean
That's
it
what we're
up,
trying to do.
we've defined the item, and then we move forward.
Have a second board meeting in 15
Well, no,
years.
we can
No,
talk
that's
about
what-
it easily.
Yeah, and one final comment, sorry, Brian, I have one final comment as well. If the main organization that is utilizing this, if we are paying all the administrative costs and the time for our staff to fill out the request and paying for the audits and other things, we may want to make.
So that's a larger discussion about whether we want the organization to continue.
Correct.
Okay. So last item on the agenda is July 4th activities planning. We have 15 minutes. We will adjourn promptly by 11:15.
So I'll start the conversation.
Please. And we just need to start planning now.
Sure.
If we're, whatever our pieces are.
As an ad hoc group that the board had appointed board members to attend, through conversations with Lexan, they reached out and asked if there'd be any interest in, instead of them doing the 4th of July event, that it turn over to CROA. CROA run the event, and they'd be willing to, Lexan would be willing to pay for the fireworks, if CROA, sponsor the fireworks if CROA ran the event. And we insisted that if we were gonna do something like that, that we would want full control over the event. We'd want to run it so that we can ensure that the safety and the parking, everything else was in place. But that's the proposal on the table. What does that look like if CROA is to run and management here runs the event, and Lexan's involvement would be sponsoring the fireworks?
CROA or CCS?
Well, it would have to be CROA staff running the event.
Right,
Would be-
and the funding would
which
be
is ultimately
CCS.
CJC staff.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify here, Lexan pays for the fireworks, sets up the fireworks and everything. We end up paying for everything else. What's the budget? I think you said 37,000?
I'll let JR elaborate.
It's about
a little more.
35,000.
And what is everything else?
So just so everybody hears this clearly, that would be $35,000 if it's not in the CROA budget. CCSC, or CCS, sorry, as I just described up there, it'd have about $110,000. So do we want to spend $35,000 of that to make sure that there are 4th of July activities? Lexan would pay for and run all the fireworks. We would run the event so that we would have a 4th of July. Because last year it was too late to do anything. So the question is, do we want 4th of July fireworks and a 4th of July evening type event? And if the answer is yes, then what we also talked, because this was a conversation we had with Steve, then we want to get the whole agreement in writing. So basically, this is what Lexan does, this is what we do, this is what they're responsible for, this is what we are responsible for, and we have the 4th of July in town. This is a yes or no type decision.
And the audience is for this? When we talk about running the event, who is our audience?
Well, we could not close the community. It's not a
Who is
big
our,
community.
who do we advertise to?
Regional or
When
is
we
it
ran,
minimum?
when we ran this event in 2016, we did no radio spots, no newspaper spots. It was just advertised through our local.
So our audience is our residents.
Okay,
Right,
we
so
do
it's
not
CCSD.
have an experienced Kissimmee grant.
Correct.
That's what requires regional advertising. We could run this with only Friday flash advertising, but the reality of the matter is it's going to be online. People are going to figure
And
it out.
just, so Brian, just to add to that, if I could, to be.
So, no,
Sorry, hold on.
we're going to keep,
Hold on, I'm sorry, Jared, real quick. Just to add to that, Brian, no one's trying to kill the fireworks, no one's trying to kill events. What we're trying to do is just clarify for everyone, including our board, how these are run and what the different organizations are
so,
for.
do we
And
need
the
to,
proposal that was brought to us by Lexington. So if it's a no and CROA decides that we're not going to do this, we can't comment 100% surety that Lexington's going to run a 4th of July
I have a
event.
couple of comments. One, when did this conversation begin with Lexington for the 4th of July fireworks? When did you first sit down with Mike Nunez to have this conversation?
It was middle of last month. It was a couple of weeks
Okay,
ago.
so, in December, hold on.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. So, last year, I brought up this conversation, and yes, it may have been late to the game, if you will. I think it was end of March, beginning April. And I was shut down completely, and I was also told that the number was $60-something thousand.
That's with fireworks.
that's with fireworks.
That was with the whole thing.
Yeah.
I, up until, and this is public, so we can share this, up until CROA and Lexington Town Center Foundation had their litigation, their arbitration and mediation, and they were going to move forward, then Lexington kicked it back when it came to the issues downtown, that they would not go ahead and listen to CROA, which is the celebration company in Disney. That is when I, individually, do not want to partner with Lexington on anything moving forward, because I do not believe they are the best partner for celebration as a whole. So I don't want to go ahead and be slapped across the face and then ask for my wallet.
Whose property are the fireworks? And all that.
CBD.
Whose property are the fireworks?
The fireworks are, question, so whose property are the fireworks sent from? They're from CDD property. It requires a CDD permit.
So they can do it without us? if
They
want.
can, yeah, and last year they did not, and Kevin's correct, last year they did not run a 4th of July event, and there was nothing in town. So management's trying to be proactive and explore opportunities if they're available.
and make a decision whether we want to do an event.
Can I wrap this up? I am supportive of the 4th of July fireworks. I went on my soapbox last year about celebration is the American town. If CROA is doing this, this will be a CROA, in my book, I'm one of 7, but this would be a CROA event. Perhaps we look at the amphitheater and Artisan, or we look at other areas that we can control the traffic, the parking, the residents only, to make it for our CROA residents.
If Lexington chooses to do the fireworks, we can't stop them.
No.
I understand.
No, absolutely
They don't
not.
have an event.
So if they want to do them, they can do them.
Correct.
At night if they want. CROA, we can do our own thing. It doesn't have to be coordinated, right?
I wanted to follow up from Brian, I'm sorry.
And
I'm
is
going
that-
to
But I want to contribute funds from our CROA residents for their
Wouldn't
event,
be contributed, we wouldn't be contributing money to Lexington.
Go ahead, Debbie?
as
Wait,
long as
when
that's the
they're
case.
Deb?
Are you guys done? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Okay, can I? No, go ahead, Vaughn. Are you done?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say, just for some history stuff, Lexington has not done the fireworks more than once. I believe this was the 2nd time. And I just want Steve to relay what happened when we did try to partner with them last time. I think CCMC did an amazing job. The staff was incredible. But can you relay why we didn't give the funds to Lexington, please?
Well, in 2016, they just decided they weren't going to do it. I don't remember all the reasoning behind why they weren't going to do it, but CROA picked it up using CCS funds, and we ran the event. And then Lexington came back and said, we would like to sponsor the fireworks. So in 16, we did pay for the event, and they paid for the fireworks.
Am I seeing
and
it
there
right
was-
that CCS meeting happened in 2016, so they
2016.
could have fireworks, and now
Yes.
CCS meeting is just happening again
Yes.
because
Yeah, the 2 times in
they want
13
fireworks
years.
again?
Well, that
Okay.
was to approve the budget to run the event.
No, that's not a fair statement.
Oh, that's very fair.
No, that's not a fair
I think
statement.
it's pretty fair.
JR, can you describe what our events would look like, might look like? Do something. What you said a moment ago, $30-some thousand.
That would be our
What would it look like?
It would be a late afternoon, evening event downtown, the restaurants with the food vendors. It would be entertainment. We would control the theme. We would control the artist. That also includes all the sheriff's deputies, the traffic control, the security downtown, anything with park and ride, and then, logistical, backline, staging, rigging, backline, anything
So we
else.
would do that downtown, or we could do it at Lakeside?
That's the one thing you have to, no other place you can safely do it.
You probably have a space issue, especially if you're going to try to do works.
Well, let's be if you lock it down to residents only, then you can't use CCS funding. You have to use CROA funding.
Correct.
Town function, not
Yeah.
a regional.
If it's not a regional event, you could use all of CCS, the 15.
You
from
just
CROA.
can't make it residents only.
You
if
can't make it
use
residents
CCS
only.
funding.
Can you
So the
security?
I do remember now from the, I'm sorry, I just had a memory, from the 2016 meeting, the one and only CCS meeting, I'm sorry, hold on, David. There was a requirement in the meetings that Luxon was going to provide a park and ride, and I believe they did not provide it, is that correct?
In 2016,
Correct.
I don't believe that we did. We had busing for that event, correct?
Correct.
But Luxon did not provide the park and ride,
It was not
correct?
part of it was us running the
It's in-
event.
it's in the
in
minutes.
full control
So
of
we-
that.
It's in the minutes.
We have 5 minutes
That's-
remaining. What decision what is needed today?
You have to come to the mic, sorry, can she help share the mic? You don't have to leave, we might need you.
So if you're going to be considering a park and ride, this is an opportunity to help buffer some of the costs. What about charging the people $5 a carload for the park and ride? It will help buffer your costs. It will also keep as many people from coming in and parking. But at the same time, you're getting revenue in to help with the fireworks and all the events downtown.
Debbie, can you say your first and last name and your address, please?
Debbie Wisniewski, 1528 Resolute Street.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think there will be all kinds of opportunity if the board would like for us to move forward with 4th of July and looking at this event, for us to look at all those logistical in and outs. But we really are time sensitive on this. If we want to be able to provide a quality 4th of July event, we're going to need some direction sooner than later. When we get into March and April, it's just getting too late to plan an event.
So going back to Vaughn's point, we can do an event, and Lexington can do their event, and those can be independent. Is that kind of your point?
It is my point.
They can do whatever they
Okay,
want.
thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to work with Lexington. I mean, a lot of people don't want to work with Lexington. If they want to do the fireworks, they can do it. Let's set up a CROA event. We can go through Canoa, right, for the streets?
I don't think anyone's saying
I
I don't think anyone's saying they don't want to work with Luxon.
Here they are, here they are.
Okay.
Go back to
Right there, that gentleman right there at the end.
We're not all saying we don't want to work with Luxon. I think we've
That's on the table.
yeah, I think there's a lot of.
That's an unresolved issue.
Here's the challenges that we face, I think. If you were to just do a 4th of July event with no fireworks, you're going to have a low turnout because it's hot, it's humid, it thunderstorms every 4th of July.
We could do fireworks.
People mostly are working, are going to an event where they'll suffer through the heat and the thunderstorm to see the fireworks.
I think it's up to the membership to say if they want fireworks or not. If so, we have spent $10,000 with a concert.
Brian.
Okay. Okay. Here's your business decision. Let's just cut
It
to
is a
the
business
chase.
decision.
CROA can throw the fireworks, CROA can throw everything. Lexington can shut down the street, have all their people put out their tents, and Lexington will make money off of all the money that the town spent. So you are either, I only see two choices, just to be perfectly frank. We don't do a 4th of July fireworks at all, or we work with Lexington, because otherwise you're going to pay for the expense and Lexington's going to benefit and they're going to praise God that we were stupid enough to let them. That's just where I'm at. So it's either yes or no to fireworks.
Yes. We have a board. Come on up, Michael.
We've got 2 minutes left in this meeting.
Unless there may be a 2B option. CCS pays for everything, pays for the fireworks,
CCS.
pays for the event, pays
We've
for
got 2
everything.
minutes left. Michael?
Hold on, Michael, sit down.
Michael Valicat, 720 East Lawn Drive. I was just wondering why there's no discussion about CCDD when they control the lakefront all the way to the curbs, all the way around, and that's where the fireworks is, and that's where the Christmas tree was supposed to be, and there's not one thing said about CCDD.
They would have to go to CCD for approval.
No, I did bring it up.
Lexington would have
That's
to
why
go
I
up.
said.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you,
Where's the
Vaughn.
fireworks come on, what property are they on? They're on
CCD property.
They're on
They have to approve
CCD
that.
property.
CCD, yep.
So we don't have to worry about the fireworks.
That is why you hear Steve say this is time sensitive. Probably, correct me if I'm wrong, probably by our February 27th, 23rd, whatever that, 27th, I think, board meeting, we have to ultimately decide.
Is it time sensitive because of the grant application date?
There is no
No grant.
When is?
No grant. It's accessing talent. Am I correct with that, Jared? And the planning?
Kevin, there's no grant at all.
Well, let me ask, there's no grant, but are we partnering with events so that, are we going to be the ones that go to CCDD to ask for permission, or are they going?
When they asked us if we were willing to partner with them, my response was, the only way we want to do this is if we're in control of the event. I would prefer this event to be a traditional 4th of July event, not a science fiction event. And to me, it's the one holiday that it should be just what it is.
But are you going to go to the CCDD?
We would do all of it. We would go and get the permit, we would go and set up the vendors, we would do everything. What we would get from Lexington is a payment for fireworks.
Okay, 1 second, Mr. President, I have.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Close the meeting.
Thank you. This meeting was scheduled for 11:15 to start. I'm asking for consideration to be given 5 minutes. My father-in-law's in the hospital. I have to make a quick phone call, and I need to be at that meeting. Can we start at 11:20? Does anyone object to starting at 11:20?
2-3.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Public can't object, it's your board.
Go.
It's your board members.
Just asking if I'm inconveniencing anybody. Do you
Yeah,
object?
And there's only 3 of us.
Yes.
This meeting?
Go make your phone call.
Thank you.
Mike, you got
The next meeting is 15 minutes, and then we have an executive session.
And we're starting at 11:20.
11:30.
Go make your phone call.
Go make your phone call. We're gonna wrap up.
Just last thing, I was wondering, I brought it up to a few different people on a few different boards about forming. I know there's too many committees in this town already, but
Folks,
we need to.
folks in the audience, we literally cannot hear up here. Please,
Let's finish.
I was just wondering why, I know there's a lot of committees that run this town, and I understand why, but maybe it's time to talk about a committee with one person from each committee to talk about stuff that relates to all different committees. You're sitting here, CDD has their meetings down by the library. God knows what Canoa meets, I certainly don't. But if you don't start working together, and the only way to do that is to form a committee with one representative from each, so you can have open conversations.
Michael, we did have one of those, and it was taken out of CROA's hands and given to another entity to oversee it.
So in wrapping this up,
We did create it.
if we're gonna have an action item at the end of February, is the is the sense of our board is to get more details based on this?
Well, I think quite
more
frankly,
details
for us
about
to move it forward, we need 4 nods yes, if that's what you'd like for us to do.
to move forward by the end of the month, and then we can vote to allocate funds.
What is your drop dead date? Just be honest.
January?
December. Every week we lose now is like losing a month. We work the direction of the board, but it's, the longer we wait, the tougher this gets.
Okay, February 27th board, we got to decide yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the
Whether
first
we're
rodeo.
doing-
We should have heard about this in November if it's.
Whether we're doing,
Disagree.
whether we're doing something or the whole packet, whether we're going to fund something, meaning some activities, or also including us funding fireworks alone. So it's like a $35,000 budget versus a $60,000 budget. Is that a fair?
It's close, right?
Well, ballpark. Ballpark.
I do not want to fund $60,000 and benefit Luxon. I just don't want to go down that. So we either are going to do the 4th with fireworks or we're not. I don't care. We make that decision. To me, that's the answer. I would hope Kevin will agree with that one. Motion to adjourn this meeting so we can use the bathroom.
Okay, one last board item. We have a board workshop scheduled for February 20.
We canceled it.
I think we should keep it.
Because
I
we
know
have
that
several
some people
remaining
cannot
items.
be here, but it
I know that
was
you
already
won't be
printed.
here, so
I can
won't
call
do.
in if we can get good call in.
It's already printed.
Do we have any other pressing business for that item?
I will not be available that day.
Okay.
I would prefer that we cancel that meeting. But I just.
Anything urgent for you?
I just feel it's already printed for the residents, and there's no disclosure in the magazine to turn
Yeah.
around and say that. meeting's
Anything
been
urgent
canceled.
for you?
Nothing urgent.
Of course, anything in any of those dates are subject to change. Anything, Jack?
If
we need to
it
cover?
is elected to cancel, we can send out cell service, individual emails.
So anything urgent that we need to cover?
I'd like to see the agenda. Before we talked about.
We don't have an
We
agenda.
didn't have anything.
Right now, we have nothing.
I have an issue that I wanted to bring up at the 20th.
Okay, so at the February 20th meeting, that was the time capsule item? Yeah. How about for the board meeting the following week? Okay. We're okay not having a February 20th meeting?
I'd like to have a meeting. but-
You want a motion?
Do we need a motion to cancel it? I don't believe so, but
I
you're
don't
going to
think
need
we- I don't think we
consensus
need
one
to.
way or the other. I don't
If
know if you have it.
there's
yet.
nothing urgent, then why don't we not have that? February 20th.
I'm fine with that.
And then we'll have that item, let's make sure that that's on the, and some documentation ahead of time would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay? Okay? Motion to adjourn this?
Second.
Thank you. We need a motion from someone.
Move.
Thanks, Jackson and then Jack. Just take a 2-minute break and then we'll go to CCS.
Hey, David, the CCS, it really is just one member. You
I know.
can live stream.
I know. We're not going to live stream. We haven't voted on it.
Shut it off?
Shut it off.
Okay.
Not live stream.
Jack, go ahead and shut it off.
Yeah, we haven't voted on it.